George Vancouver was born in the small English town of King's Lynn on June 22, 1757. His father was a deputy collector of customs, a respectable position that provided the family with a stable life. From a very young age, George showed a deep fascination with the sea. He would spend hours watching the tall ships sail in and out of the busy port, dreaming of the distant lands they visited. This was an era of great exploration, a time when stories of heroic voyages and new discoveries filled the minds of ambitious young men. The Royal Navy was the most powerful in the world, and for a boy like George, it represented the ultimate path to adventure and a meaningful career. His family supported his ambition, recognizing that the Navy offered a structured path for a determined young man. At the tender age of 13, in 1771, he officially joined the Royal Navy. This was not an unusual age to begin a naval career at the time, but it required immense bravery and a willingness to leave childhood behind. He was fortunate to be appointed as a midshipman aboard HMS Resolution, a ship commanded by the legendary Captain James Cook. This was an incredible opportunity, placing him directly under the tutelage of the most celebrated explorer of the age. This first voyage would shape his entire future, teaching him the essential skills of navigation, cartography, and seamanship. Serving under Captain Cook was like attending the world's greatest school of exploration. On his second voyage, from 1772 to 1775, Vancouver sailed to the far reaches of the South Pacific. He witnessed firsthand Cook's meticulous methods for mapping coastlines and his respectful though firm interactions with indigenous peoples. He learned how to endure the immense hardships of long sea journeys, from the threat of scurvy to the unpredictable violence of the ocean. These formative years were crucial. They instilled in him a deep respect for precision and a relentless drive to complete any mission he was given, no matter the difficulty or the personal cost involved. By the time he joined Cook for his third and final voyage from 1776 to 1780, Vancouver was a seasoned young officer. This expedition took him to the Pacific Northwest coast of North America for the first time, a region that would later define his own legacy. He was present during the first European encounters with the Hawaiian Islands and tragically witnessed Cook's death there in 1779. The experience was profound and deeply affected him. It taught him about the complexities and dangers of cross-cultural encounters. Returning to England, Vancouver was no longer just a boy with a dream. He was a skilled and experienced mariner, ready to carve his own path in the history of exploration. In 1791, the British Admiralty chose Captain George Vancouver to lead one of the most ambitious voyages of exploration ever attempted. He was given command of two ships, HMS Discovery and the smaller armed tender HMS Chatham. His primary mission was to survey the vast uncharted coastline of North America's Pacific Northwest. This region was a point of international tension, particularly between Britain and Spain, who both claimed rights to the territory. Vancouver's orders were complex. He was to map the coast with scientific precision, search for the mythical Northwest Passage, and assert British sovereignty in the region by negotiating with the Spanish at Nootka Sound. It was a mission that combined diplomacy, science, and pure exploration. The expedition set sail from England with great anticipation. The ships were packed with supplies intended to last for years, including scientific instruments, materials for repairs, and provisions to combat disease. Vancouver personally selected his officers and crew, choosing men he knew to be skilled, resilient, and disciplined. He understood that a long voyage was as much a test of human endurance and cooperation as it was a test of navigational skill. His leadership style was demanding and strict, rooted in the naval traditions he had learned under Captain Cook. He expected perfection from his men because he knew that a single mistake in these unknown waters could lead to disaster for everyone aboard. After a long journey that took them around the Cape of Good Hope, across the Pacific and to Hawaii, the expedition finally reached the coast of North America in April 1792. They began their painstaking work near present-day Oregon. Vancouver's method was incredibly thorough. While the larger ships anchored in a safe harbor, he would lead smaller survey parties in open boats. These small teams would row for days or even weeks at a time, meticulously charting every inlet, island, and channel. They worked tirelessly through difficult weather, navigating treacherous currents and dense fog to create maps of unparalleled accuracy and detail, slowly revealing the true geography of the coastline. This systematic approach was what made Vancouver's expedition so successful. Over the next 3 years, he and his crew systematically surveyed the coast from California all the way to Alaska. They proved that the Strait of Juan de Fuca was not the entrance to a northwest passage, but instead led to a massive inland sea which he named the Puget Sound after one of his lieutenants. They circumnavigated the huge island that would later be named in his honor. The work was slow, repetitive, and often dangerous, but Vancouver's unwavering commitment to his mission ensured that every mile of coastline was documented with scientific rigor, forever changing the world's maps. The journey was filled with immense challenges that tested the crew's physical and mental limits. Life at sea for months on end was incredibly difficult. The sailors faced a constant battle against the elements, including violent storms, thick fog, and freezing temperatures. The work of surveying in small open boats was particularly grueling. The men were exposed to relentless rain and wind, often sleeping in damp clothes and eating cold rations. They had to navigate complex rocky shorelines where a single miscalculation could dash their boat against hidden reefs. Vancouver's strict discipline was essential in keeping the men focused and preventing the despair that could easily take hold during such long periods of hardship. One of the greatest threats on any long voyage of this era was scurvy, a debilitating disease caused by a lack of vitamin C. Drawing from the lessons he learned with Captain Cook, Vancouver was obsessive about the health of his crew. He enforced a strict regimen that included regular cleaning of the ship's quarters to maintain hygiene and a diet supplemented with spruce beer and sauerkraut whenever possible. He made sure the men had fresh food whenever they could trade for it or find it ashore. While some men still fell ill, his diligent efforts prevented the widespread outbreak that had doomed so many other expeditions, allowing his crew to remain effective throughout their mission. Interactions with the indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest were another significant challenge. These encounters were complex and required careful diplomacy. Vancouver generally aimed for peaceful relations, engaging in trade for fresh provisions and information about the local geography. However, misunderstandings and cultural differences sometimes led to tense situations. Vancouver had to balance the need for supplies with the safety of his crew, navigating these interactions with caution and a firm hand. His journals provide detailed accounts of the many different First Nations communities he met, offering a valuable, though European-centric, glimpse into their societies at the time of contact. Despite the hardships, the morale of the crew was often high, driven by the thrill of discovery. Each newly charted bay and island was a victory. Vancouver led by example, often joining the small boat parties himself and sharing in their toils. He named many of the geographic features they discovered after his officers, crew members, friends and patrons back in England, a practice that helped build a sense of shared accomplishment. This recognition of their hard work was important for maintaining motivation. It was this combination of strict naval discipline, careful health management, and a shared sense of purpose that allowed the expedition to overcome every obstacle and complete its monumental task. Captain George Vancouver returned to England in 1795, having successfully completed one of the longest and most fruitful voyages of exploration in history. He had sailed over 65,000 miles and meticulously charted nearly 1,700 miles of the North American coastline. His health, however, was broken by the years of strain and hardship. He spent his final years tirelessly working on his extensive journals and overseeing the engraving of his charts, determined to see his life's work published. He died in 1798, just before his massive 3-volume account, A Voyage of Discovery to the North Pacific Ocean and Round the World, was released to the public. His work immediately became the definitive authority on the region. The most visible part of Vancouver's legacy is found on the modern map. The largest city in British Columbia, Vancouver, and the massive island off its coast, Vancouver Island, are both named in his honor. Across the border in the United States, the city of Vancouver, Washington, also bears his name. Beyond these major landmarks, countless other places carry the names he bestowed upon them. Puget Sound, Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, and Burrard Inlet are just a few of the features he named, honoring his crew, his friends, and prominent figures in Britain. These names serve as a permanent reminder of his expedition's journey through these waters. Beyond the names, Vancouver's greatest contribution was the maps themselves. His charts were so accurate and detailed that they remained the primary navigational resource for the Pacific Northwest for well over a century. He definitively proved that there was no navigable Northwest Passage in the latitudes he surveyed, putting an end to a myth that had driven explorers for generations. His work replaced speculation with facts, providing the British government with the geographic knowledge it needed to solidify its claims in the region and paving the way for future trade, settlement, and development. His expedition effectively drew the map that future generations would follow. Today, we remember Captain George Vancouver, not just as a name on a map, but as a master navigator, a demanding leader, and a dedicated scientist. His expedition stands as a monumental achievement of seamanship and cartography. While modern perspectives also consider the complex impact of his arrival on indigenous populations, his role in charting this vast and beautiful part of the world is undeniable. His relentless pursuit of accuracy and his unwavering dedication to his mission set a new standard for maritime exploration. His legacy is etched into the very coastline he so carefully documented, a testament to a man whose life was devoted to understanding and mapping our world.